On October 30th, 1969, in the small town of Barkley Cove, North Carolina, two boys riding their bikes through the woods stumble onto a dead body near the lake. Soon, two police officers arrive to investigate. The victim is Chase Andrews, a former football star and one of the most popular young men in town. Right away, the officers notice something strange. There are no footprints near the body except the ones left by the boys who found him. High above, part of the fire tower's safety railing is damaged and hanging loose. The coroner says Chase died sometime between midnight and early morning. He fell 63 feet and died instantly when the back of his head struck a wooden beam on the way down. At first, it looks like Chase either slipped backward or was pushed. But something else bothers the investigators. There are no fingerprints anywhere. None on the stairs, none on the railing, not even Chase's own prints. The only clue they find is a tiny red wool fiber stuck to his jacket, and the lab later confirms it did not come from his own clothing. It came from someone else. Even though Chase was well-liked, people admit he had a darker side, especially when it came to chasing women. Around the same time, a woman named Sandy starts spreading a rumor that Chase may have been killed by the so-called Marsh girl, a young woman who lives alone in the swampy wetlands outside town. According to local gossip, she is unstable and dangerous. Two officers overhear the rumor and head straight to the Marsh girl's home. Her real name is Kaya. Without a warrant, they search through her things and find a red ski hat, and they immediately decide it could tie her to the murder. Kaya is already hiding in the woods, knowing she is the prime suspect, but the officers track her down and arrest her. As she is brought into town, the whole community turns on her. People yell and treat her like a monster before the trial has even started. She is thrown into a jail cell, completely alone, except for a stray cat that curls up beside her. This is her story. Welcome to Where the Crawdads Sing. Soon, a retired lawyer named Tom visits Kaya and offers to help. Unlike everyone else, Tom knows her full name, Catherine Danielle Clark, and he still sees her as a human being instead of a legend. At first, Kaya refuses to speak, but when Tom gives her a book, that small kindness finally gets her to open up. The story flashes back to 1953, when Kaya was a little girl living deep in the marsh with her family. Life was bearable as long as her mother and siblings were around, but her father was violent and unpredictable. One day he explodes in anger, and Kaya tries to fight back before her older brother stops her. The abuse is not limited to the children. Her father beats her mother so badly that eventually the woman can no longer take it and leaves. After that, the family slowly falls apart. One by one, the siblings leave, until only Jody remains. Before he goes too, Jody gives Kaya one piece of advice: to survive by hiding whenever danger comes. Then Kaya is left alone with her father. Wandering the marsh by herself, Kaya reconnects with Tate, an old friend of her brother, and that gives her enough confidence to finally tell her father she is hungry. Surprisingly, he takes her into town, but instead of buying food, he spends his money on alcohol. He warns the shop owner, Jumpin, to keep Kaya away from other people. Luckily, Jumpin's wife, Mabel, shows Kaya kindness right away, encouraging her to try school for the free meals and secretly slipping her food and candy. Kaya does go to school, but she feels completely out of place, especially after almost getting run over by Chase Andrews on his bicycle. Inside, the other kids mock her for not knowing how to read, and the bullying becomes too much. She runs away and never returns, choosing to learn from nature instead of people. For a short while, her father becomes calmer, even taking her fishing and giving her his old bag. But the peace does not last. A letter arrives from Kaya's mother, and her father reads it in silence before burning it in anger. That same night, he burns all of his wife's belongings, and not long after, he disappears and dies, leaving Kaya completely alone. Now she has to survive on her own. She collects mussels and sells them to Jumpin's store, and Jumpin and Mabel become the only people who truly look after her. Mabel teaches her basic math, gives her clothes, and treats her with a warmth she rarely gets anywhere else. Back in the present, the trial begins. Kaya is charged with first-degree murder, and the prosecutor makes it clear she could face the death penalty. Tom offers her a plea deal, 6 to 10 years if she admits it was an accident during a fight. But Kaya refuses to confess to something she says she never did. The prosecutor paints a terrifying picture. He claims Kaya lured Chase to the fire tower at night, pushed him, then wiped away every fingerprint. Tom responds by pointing out there is no physical evidence, and that the town blames her simply because she has always been an outsider, even though she only lives 5 miles away. The story flashes back to 1962. Older now, Kaya spends her days exploring the marsh, and one day she notices a young man nearby and hides. The next day she finds a feather left for her, then more small gifts, a battery, a note, some seeds. When she finally meets the young man leaving them, it turns out to be Tate. She admits she cannot read the note, so he reads it for her, and soon he offers to teach her how to read. Day by day she learns, and the two grow close over the biology books Tate borrows from the library. Eventually she can read the family Bible, where she discovers records of her parents, her siblings, and her own birthday, giving her a sense of family she never had. As time passes, Kaya and Tate become a couple, spending their days exploring nature and reading together. On her birthday, their relationship grows more intimate, but Tate stops himself because he has just been accepted into his dream college. The news breaks Kaya's heart. She wants him to stay, but he cannot give up his future. Before he leaves, he gives her a list of publishers, believing her writings and nature illustrations could become a real book someday. But Kaya only cares about Tate, and she is terrified he will forget her. He promises to return on the 4th of July. When the day finally comes, she dresses up and waits, but Tate never shows. Back in the present, Sheriff Jackson takes the stand. The prosecutor argued that the missing footprints and fingerprints prove someone cleaned the scene, and that the broken railing was damaged on purpose. But Tom challenges the whole theory. Using tide charts, he explains that during the time of death the tide was low and the ground was muddy, and when the water rose again, any footprints would have been washed away naturally. Then Tom reveals something shocking, a letter the sheriff himself wrote months earlier, warning the Department of Forestry that the tower railing was dangerously unsafe and could cause a deadly accident if it was not repaired. The courtroom is stunned. Suddenly, the idea that Chase simply fell sounds far more believable than murder, and the jury begins to doubt the prosecution. The story flashes back to 1968, 1 year before the arrest. Kaya spends time alone near the beach, and one day she notices a man watching her. Later, she finds someone photographing her property and rushes to jump in for help. He explains the man is a developer planning to drain the marsh to build a hotel. This creates a serious problem. Kaya only ever had her father's word that the land belonged to them. At the records office, she learns her grandfather, Napier Clark, bought the land back in 1897, so she does legally own it. But the property taxes have gone unpaid for years, and anyone who pays the debt could claim the land. The amount owed is $800, far more than she could ever afford. In the middle of all this, Chase Andrews enters her life. The man who had been watching her turns out to be Chase, and acting charming, he invites her on a picnic boat date. After years of loneliness, Kaya accepts. She also remembers Tate's old list of publishers and decides to send her notes and illustrations about the marsh ecosystem, hoping it might become a book that could save her home. On the date, Kaya explains a shell in incredible detail, and Chase is surprised by how much she knows, though he unintentionally hurts her feelings by joking about the marsh girl. Then he suddenly kisses her, and she freezes and pulls away, before he apologizes and works to win back her trust. He takes her to the fire tower, where she watches him repair part of the loose railing with his own hands. Over time, the two grow closer, and for the first time in years, Kaya no longer feels alone. But the differences from Tate are obvious. Where Tate treated her home with respect, Chase barges in and touches her things freely. Hints of darkness begin to surface too. Even Chase's own father once admitted that if people knew the real Chase, they would not want anything to do with him. Back in court, the prosecution reveals that the red wool fiber on Chase's jacket matches Kaya's red ski hat, the same one seized from her home. But Tom points out a flaw. He asks whether anyone can prove when the fiber was transferred, and the answer is no. They can say where it came from, but not when. In the past, Kaya and Chase grow even closer. She makes him a shell necklace, and her hard work finally pays off when a publisher agrees to release her book. Chase arrives with news of his own, a new job as a manager, and they celebrate together. He talks about marrying her and showing her a life beyond the marsh. They spend the night at a motel, her first real intimate relationship, and she gives him the shell necklace, which he treasures. In court, the case takes another turn when Chase's mother testifies. She says Chase wore that necklace every single day, but when his body was found, the necklace was missing. She suggests Kaya killed him out of heartbreak and took the necklace back. Tom fights back with logic, reminding everyone that the police searched Kaya's home thoroughly and never found the necklace anywhere. The story flashes back to 1969, the year Chase dies. Kaya and Chase are still together when Tate finally returns to Barkley Cove and sees for himself that Kaya has moved on. Soon after, Tate is seen leaving Jumpin's store wearing a red ski hat, finally revealing where the hat from the investigation came from. Then Tate overhears Chase bragging crudely about Kaya to his friends, and the two get into a brief fight. That night, Tate visits Kaya and apologizes for disappearing, but she cannot forgive him. Before leaving, he gives her another feather and mentions he now works at a biology lab. The next day, Kaya runs into Chase in town and happily tells him about her book, only for her world to collapse. She discovers Chase has been secretly engaged to another woman named Pearl the whole time, and Pearl introduces herself right in front of her. Devastated, Kaya goes home. Chase arrives by boat, but she hides instead of facing him, and from her hiding place, she finally sees the real Chase, losing control and destroying her belongings in a violent rage, just like her father years ago. A few days later, incredible news arrives. Her book is published and a check for $5,000 comes with it. For the first time, Kaya has enough to change everything. She immediately pays off the overdue taxes, and at last the Marsh is legally hers and no one can take it. With the rest, she begins fixing up her house. Then her brother Jody returns, now a soldier. He brings heartbreaking news that their mother died of leukemia and that her final letter was never abandonment at all. She had been working to earn enough money to hire a lawyer and come back for her children, but she died before she could. For the first time, Kaya understands why her mother left. Kaya dedicates her book to the feather boy, meaning Tate, and goes to leave a copy for him at Jumpin's store. But Chase shows up with friends and aggressively demands she leave with him, and she refuses. Later, while she is out gathering notes, Chase confronts her again and becomes openly abusive, insulting and hitting her. Kaya fights back, overpowers him, and warns him that if he ever bothers her again, she will kill him.
Leave me alone, you bastard!
Unluckily, someone nearby overhears every word. The story jumps to the courtroom, where that witness testifies under oath that the woman threatening Chase was Kaya. Back in the past, when Kaya later hears a boat approaching, she hides through the night and into the next morning while Chase searches for her. He never finds her, but when she returns home, her house has been trashed again. That night, something in her changes. Exhausted and pushed to her limit, she prepares to fight back once and for all. But instead of Chase, Tate arrives. Seeing the bruises on her face, he realizes something terrible has happened. Kaya explains she has to travel to Greenfield the next day to meet her publisher about her next book. Even with her career growing, she is terrified of the outside world. But Tate encourages her to go. They stop by Jumpin's store to arrange a bus ticket, and before she leaves, Tate gives her his red ski hat so she will stay warm. Back in court, Tate, Jumpin, Mabel, and Jody are all present. In another flashback, when Kaya arrived at Jumpin's store with injuries, she refused to explain and refused to report Chase to the police, convinced no one would ever believe the Marsh girl over someone like Chase Andrews. Jumpin, acting like a father figure, promised not to make things worse. A new witness, Sandy from the Piggly store, confirms she saw Kaya board a bus at 9 in the morning on October 29th, dressed neatly for Greenfield. At first, this supports Kaya's alibi, but the prosecutor twists it. Since Sandy only saw her leave in the morning, she could not know whether Kaya secretly returned during the night. He builds a new theory, that Kaya took a late-night bus back, murdered Chase, then caught another bus back to Greenfield before sunrise, making it look like she never left. Then Kaya's editor, Robert Foster, testifies. He describes her as shy, gentle, and extremely intelligent, and recalls their first meeting on October 29th, where she talked passionately about insects, including how some female insects consume the males as part of survival. To Kaya, nature is not moral or immoral. Survival is simply survival. Robert says that the next morning, October 30th, Kaya seemed calm and completely normal, not like someone who had traveled all night and committed a murder. His testimony weakens the prosecution again. Still, the prosecutor pushes on, noting that Kaya stayed at a place called the Tree Mountain, close to the bus station, giving her the perfect chance to slip out unnoticed. Convinced the only way to save Kaya is to let the jury see the real person, Tom asks her to testify. But Kaya refuses. She knows those same people who mocked her for years will never see her the way he does, and standing before them to beg for sympathy would feel like surrendering her dignity. She tells him no verdict will ever change who she truly is, but she will always remember his kindness. The trial reaches its final stage. The prosecutor paints Kaya as a rejected lover, driven by revenge, leaning on the town's belief that the Marsh girl is wild and dangerous. He reminds the jury of her threat, the red fibers, and the missing necklace, and urges them to convict her of first-degree murder. Then Tom speaks. Instead of fear, he appeals to conscience and facts. He reminds everyone that Kaya is not a monster, just a little girl who was abandoned and forced to survive alone because the town chose to reject her instead of help her. He points to Jumpin and Mabel, the only two people who ever truly cared for her. Then he tears apart the theory that within a few hours, Kaya secretly traveled back and forth by bus without being recognized, killed Chase, erased every trace, and returned looking perfectly normal. To Tom, it sounds less like evidence and more like a fantasy built from gossip and prejudice. He begs the jury to see her as Catherine Danielle Clark, a citizen who deserves justice based on facts, not hatred. The trial ends and everyone waits. Hours pass with no verdict. After 6 long hours, Tom takes it as a good sign, believing that if the jurors are struggling this much, there is still hope. Then he is called back. The jury delivers its verdict. Kaya is found not guilty, and the judge even apologizes for the months she spent locked away. Finally free, Kaya returns home to the Marsh with Jody. While wandering, she spots Tate out on the water doing research and quietly leaves a feather on his boat before slipping away. He notices it immediately and knows exactly who left it. That same day, Tate rushes to her house, and after years of separation, they finally reunite completely. Not long after, he asks her to marry him, and from then on, they spend the rest of their lives together. Kaya keeps writing successful books, building a peaceful life in the marsh. Over the years, sadness still comes. Jumpin passes away, leaving Mabel and Kaya heartbroken. More years go by until Kaya grows old and finally dies peacefully, leaving Tate alone once more. After her death, Tate decides to donate her lifelong collection of writings and research to a university. But while sorting through her belongings, he discovers something unexpected, a diary Kaya wrote during the time she was involved with Chase Andrews. Inside is a chilling line about survival in nature, that for prey to survive, the predator must die. And tucked within the diary, Tate finds the missing shell necklace, the same one that vanished on the night Chase died and became one of the biggest mysteries in the entire case. In that moment, Tate finally realizes the truth. Kaya really did kill Chase Andrews, and with that shocking revelation, the story comes to an end. So the moral of the story is never underestimate the quiet girl who studies bugs, because she might solve her relationship problems with National Geographic logic.